This is the Franchise QB Podcast, where we empower entrepreneurs to win big in franchising. We huddle up weekly to educate our audience about the most successful small business model ever created, franchising.
Welcome to the Franchise QB Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Halpern, a 20-year industry veteran and entrepreneur. My mission is for listeners to achieve their American dreams of creating wealth and independence through franchise ownership. Every week, we speak with franchisees, franchisors, or vendors that support the industry. Thank you for joining us, and let's get started. Joining us in the huddle today is Josh Hoffmann, Director of Franchise Development with HorsePower Brands and Groovy Hues. Welcome to the show, Josh.
Mike, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Great to have you. So let's talk a little bit about your background in franchising. You worked for a multi-unit franchise owner with College Pro. That's a really interesting way to kind of start your career. Then you went to work for a franchisor, so from franchisee to franchisor with premium service brands as a director of training, worked your way up to VP. And then next you found your current position at HorsePower Brands, started off in development, spearheading Mighty Dog Roofing, and now you're working on Groovy Hues, which is the brand we're going to discuss today. So let's kind of rewind back to your start in franchising. How did you find out about the opportunity with the College Pro franchisee to kind of get this thing started?
It's a great question. I actually didn't know I was working for College Pro when I first started. I was coming in, this is just out of the housing crisis. I need to pay some bills over the summer and had a buddy who said, hey, I'm painting houses. Do you want to come do that? So talked to the owner and came on board. And at the time, I didn't really know what a franchise was. Slowly but surely kind of figured it out and realized that I was looking, the guy I was working for was a very nice guy, but I'm like, if this guy can make money doing this, like, what am I doing painting houses? Like, I think I can do great in this. So ended up having the ability to become a franchisee from there. And I was with them for about 8 years, helping on the operation side, and in time running my location more absentee.
Okay. And where was that geographically?
So I worked in both Chicagoland and Kansas City. And then when I worked with their corporate team, I oversaw most of the Midwest. So think about Omaha, Nebraska to about Indianapolis.
Okay. Very cool. So then when did you make your transition over to premium service?
Yeah, so I got to an age where I don't know that I could pull a College Pro anymore with the name in mind.
You aged out of the gig?
Yeah, I aged out of the gig, and I was like, all right, time to help some other entrepreneurs. So I had gotten a call from a friend, another franchisee who was over there. I think when I came on board, there were about 25 to 30 franchisees when they were one brand. Was with them as they grew to 7 or 8 brands in there, and it was a really fun opportunity to help revamp their training beginning to end. And then for me, see different industries, how they operate, what really goes on in the background for a franchisor, how do they support their Z's the best. And
at the time, how many concepts did they operate?
So when I came on board, they had just had one. So they were in the painting space, and then they grew to, by the time I left there, it was about 8.
Got it. Very cool. So tell us how the transition to get from premium service over to HorsePower.
Yeah, so I had worked my way up and I was running 2 of their brands, and it just became a nice time to exit. And actually, through someone like you, Mike, it was a franchise consultant said, hey, check out this HorsePower Brands thing. They had been in business for about a year. They're out of Omaha, Nebraska. And I say oversaw Omaha, but in my head, I'm like, what? Cornhuskers and what else is out here. So got introduced to Zach and Josh and Tony, and I fell in love. Had talked to them over the phone most of the time. At that point, it was just Mighty Dog. We were launching our next 2 brands very shortly after. And I remember coming in, and I think 2 of my favorite things I saw, I laughed at the time. We had about 40 Z's, 30 were operational, and they had about 80 employees in the office. And I thought I was, smart stuff coming in there. And I was like, Zach, Josh, Tony, like, you guys are insane. No franchisor has more in-house employees than they do franchisees. And they're like, well, we do. That's how we support them. And that was my moment that I was like, I love what you guys are doing operationally. So it started with Mighty Dog. I actually came on the operation side, and they said, why don't you look into development? So Terp Ricketts is a little bit of a famous name around these parts. So
I had Terp on the show.
Yeah, he was got promoted at the time, so I took over his role, and then now about a year and a half ago took over for Groovy.
Okay, very cool. So where did you move from to go to Omaha? Like, where were you at the time?
Yeah, so I was in Virginia,
Okay.
and then moved out here. And it's actually, I got to give HorsePower some credit. I think it's one of the things that got me married. My girlfriend at the time said, "Hey, if I move into Omaha, Nebraska, you got to put a ring on it." I said, "That's actually a pretty fair fair end to do." So here we are today.
Yeah, that's good. I'm glad it worked out for you personally and professionally. And one of your colleagues, Anthony Spagnola, who's now doing the Stand Strong brand, he and I worked together when he was doing kind of tech stuff in the franchise space. And that's how I knew him. And then he kind of told us a story of meeting, Josh and Zach and realizing like this is a really interesting opportunity, and relocated from the New York, New Jersey metropolitan area to Omaha. So there's an allure to Omaha. People are just flocking out there to get into the space.
We've got groups and pods here. Those who have ever lived outside of Omaha, and then everyone who's in the corporate office.
Yeah,
so,
I went out there to visit last year. It was a really great experience. So, well, awesome. So let's get on task. So Groovy Hues is your brand. What is Groovy Hues for someone that's unfamiliar with the brand?
Yeah, so Groovy Hues, at our core, we are a paint franchise. So we focus on interior, exterior, residential, commercial. And then we have a couple ancillary service lines in power and soft washing. And then what I like to call light cosmetic upgrades.
Okay.
So think like shutters, gutters, front doors, light things that a normal paint company wouldn't offer a homeowner that we can do to raise the value of the home, but also keeps the jobs very simple with a little bit more of a profit boost in those ends.
Yeah, and we'll get into those specifically here in a little bit. But like, what sets Groovy Hues apart from a typical painting company? What do you see as the main differentiator?
Yeah, I would generally say two big ones. Number one, and we'll call it three. So number one is those multiple service lines. And this is true in my experience, which to get anything done in my home, if I want kind of a multifaceted project, I've got to call 3-4 different contractors.
Couple guys, yeah.
Right. And now all of a sudden I'm playing GC, which means I'm not spending time with my family. I'm not doing my hobbies. So having that in one package is really beneficial to the consumer. Number two in that, and this might sound simple, but it is all the HorsePower brand support. So Z Services, which is, solutions for common business problems, means that I have a very stable operation and a very pronounced, prominent, profitable industry, which means I can give my consumers a better experience. So from a call center to a digital marketing agency to fleet service, it means our Zs aren't focused on those things in their business. They're focused on growing and servicing customers. And then the last three would be around technology. In the paint space, there really are three types of customers and what they care about. It could be all three,
Right.
which is design, confidence in pricing, and then the ability to communicate. So we've built software that auto communicates with the customer. We have a white label product from Sherwin-Williams that we can actually design the home, change colors, add pieces onto. And then from an estimating standpoint, we're not walking out with a yard wheel or, a carbon copy sheet of paper or even a laptop. We're actually 3D rendering the homes down to the measurements so that a consumer can say, well, I can design the home the way I just dreamed of. I can be confident that I know where my pricing and measurements are coming from. And then lastly, I can be communicated with, so my project is updated. It makes for just a beginning to end huge customer, a better experience.
Yeah, that sounds cool. So let's dive into the core service offerings. Obviously, paint is number one. So as a percentage of revenue, do we have a ballpark of what we'd like that to be for an owner or what it is?
Yeah, so out of the gate, we're going to start them just with the painting line. Now, for a little bit more capital investment, they can get into that. But we know that focus creates wealth. It's the diversification that preserves it. With those, think power washing and shutters are typically just a smaller ticket. So they're nice to be able to add on when the franchisee is ready to add that. So they aren't biting off too much of the apple, right? So with all our data, we can guide them through that. So early on, if you're starting with both, again, paint is always going to be 70 to 80%, which depending on the next service line could be anywhere from 15 to 30% of revenue going that way.
Got it. So when they're launching, what equipment and what staff are we recommending to get them up and running?
Yeah, so from an equipment standpoint, they start with 2 vehicles because we want 2 people to start in the business. So we support both the executive model or semi-involved and owner-operator model. So from an equipment standpoint, it's really those trucks. We use all subcontractors outside of that. So owners aren't buying any heavy equipment. There's no need for a storefront. At max, you're really maybe looking for a storage unit. If you wanted to store some of your materials, that you'd have that for a couple $100 a month in that end. So they're not starting with that. And then those 2 full-time employees would be a GM, we refer to as a territory manager, and then a salesperson. So we built it from the gate to be a larger revenue opportunity, which just means I need those 2 people running those functions out of the gate.
So who's responsible for kind of interfacing with the customer while the work's taking place and after the work's done? Which of those roles kind of oversees the job and makes sure the customer's happy and gets that great review?
Yeah, so I would say, again, anything before the actual production of the job is going to go to the salesperson, right? So they're meeting with that person, giving the bid, signing the contract. It then gets handed over to the territory manager. So they're working with the subcontractor, starting up that job, and then ending the job. So one of the things I love about the subcontractor model in this particular industry is that I start up the job and we've got really sophisticated work orders. I'm not managing it day to day. Once it's up and going, I'm just checking in at the end of the day to say, hey, where are we at? Where are we going to be? And from that model, again, I'm not paying a subcontractor till the customer pays me. Yep. And the customer's not paying me till they're happy. So it's kind of this self-managing system of, painters are incentivized to do a quality job because that's when they get paid.
Yeah. And I know that, I've talked to a lot of painting franchisors over the years, and a common misconception is that it's challenging to get good subs. And you talk about labor in any W-2 or 1099 environment, it's hard to get good people. But once you have them and especially in painting, like they like to do the trade, you're giving them wholesale work, you're keeping them busy. They may make $100,000 a year with their own work, but if you supplement that with consistent work, they know they're getting paid on time. They don't have to deal with client acquisition. Like they can make an extra $50,000, $100,000 or more. So there's a real appeal there. There's a real pool of labor that really enjoys having that work set up for them.
Yeah, I would 100% agree, right? So 2 things that really add to that, and our validation is that we just don't have any owners who are struggling to find good labor. One, because you talk about good labor, this is an industry where I can look at a wall and say, yeah, it's supposed to be yellow, it's yellow, or hey, it's not, it needs to have a little bit more work. So quality is a little bit easier to manage. Yep. The second end is you talk about while there's a right way to paint a house, it's not rocket science. So it's not this high skilled trade like electric work or plumbing, which are great industries, but for someone to be able to get paid like skilled labor, blue collar workers are attracted to that industry because they can say, I can learn it quickly, I can do a great job, and still get paid as much as these other trades that are a little bit more intellectually, capitally intensive is the word I'm looking for.
So you kind of touched on this earlier, but you offer through Groovy Hues a program called Custom Curb Appeal. And I know that's kind of in relation to, what you see from the street. Tell us a little bit about what that program is and what types of services can be kind of wrapped into that design element when a customer's like, hey, I have a lot of stuff to do, help me transform, the look of my home.
Yeah, so I guess I'll start where we kind of draw the line. If you say, hey, I want to build a sunroom, that's where you need some framing, licensing, all these other things. That's where we're going to cut the line off. But when it comes to, again, those cosmetic repairs, maybe it's light siding, fascia boards that, hey, I just need to get repaired. We can do that. Hey, I want to replace a gable, or I've got a column on my front porch that I want wrapped in cedar, or a custom shutter, or maybe even a new front door. So from the exterior standpoint, these are things that can raise your property value, along with obviously the cosmetic look of it, at a nominal charge because we're already out there. Mm-hmm. And then something on the inside, obviously we do things like cabinets, but it's, hey, replacing the knobs, or even something as small as electrical outlet covers. Man, I put that old yellow cover on, an old living room after I'm done painting. It's an eyesore. Hey, why don't I replace that with something a little bit nicer? And at a small, even a small amount, it makes a big difference to that consumer. And the other one we love about the program is from a, social media is a part of our world, whether people like it or not.
Lots of before and afters.
It's natural to go, oh my gosh, I've never seen anything like that. I want to get that done too. The keeping up with the Joneses, very real, is just accelerated.
Yeah, I think paint is usually one of the least expensive ways to do a full different look and feel on a property, whether it's interior or exterior.
100%.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about that technology you touched on. So you have 3D technology and you have something called the Groovy Visualizer. I like that. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so the 3D software really, again, came from customer complaints in the, in our past experience, which is you get 3 quotes on your office mic and you get $1,000 quote and you get a $10,000 quote. And as a consumer, I'm going, who's right? And who do I end up going with? It's usually the guy in the middle or the gal in the middle. So with that software, I'm able to come in and build that confidence of, hey, Mike, I didn't see, a nice car in the driveway or a nice set of golf clubs and go, yep, that ticket just went up. That's real in the industry. Or even worse, I'm a local painting company. I just really need a job this week. And a job that should have been $5,000, they charge $3,000 for. And the job doesn't get done properly because it wasn't properly invested in and then ignored. So there's that confidence level to that. And that works both interior and exterior. The other beautiful part is we store that data long term. So when you go back to that house in 5 years, you already have the measurements. So it's something we're actually developing to be able to do that from afar. And then the visualizer is really cool because it is just one snap photo of the room. And then that software, again, is white labeled for us from Sherwin-Williams. So you can go to our website, play around with it. And then it's preloaded with all the Sherwin colors. It's one of the pain points of the industry we talked a little bit about, which is, hey, I'm painting. I want to get it done right. I want the color I want. So I can change those around because if you've ever been in any sort of paint store, there's a lot of shades of the same looking color to me.
Yeah, I've been there.
Green is green. And they're like, the software is pretty cool in the way that you can look and say, well, because you're going with this color, you don't want, forest green. You want leaf green, which to my eyes don't look any different. But in the room, when you're done, you're going, man, that does look a lot better. So what it does is it takes that lift off the owner to have to say, no, I'm a design company. That's what.
So from a process standpoint, during the consultation, the sales manager or the salesperson is sitting down with the homeowner and kind of showing them, the possibilities using this visualizer?
Correct. So I'm going to leave that with you, Mike. So we go through what we're looking for. I'm going to hand that to you and go, hey, while I actually get the numbers together, why don't you guys play around with what you're looking for? It's not even a decision you have to make. It doesn't affect the price of the home. So we can walk out of the house and say, hey, you need another week to decide on colors, but you're ready to sign a contract and get the process going. I can win a job a lot quicker than my competition who needs to get 6, 7, different stops at Sherwin to get the color they're looking for.
Yeah. And also you have the potential consumer participating in the process, which I think is going to give them more confidence and also kind of, they're going to want to kind of come to fruition and sign that contract because they're like, okay, I designed this. I might as well, move forward if I like the price and I like the people and all that.
100%.
Cool. So tell us a little bit about, you touched on the shared services before. That's one of the big benefits that HorsePower Brands brings to the table. What can a Groovy Hues owner expect from HorsePower in regards to some of those shared services?
Yeah, Z Services is our version of looking and saying, there's these common business problems. How do we provide solutions? And what we looked at was, what are things that are non-revenue generating activity for a franchisee? So I think back to my days, it's sitting behind QuickBooks. It's trying to figure out staffing. It's where do I buy my next truck from? So we started these service lines, which HorsePower owns, that are designed specifically for our brand. So that expectation would be, we have Z Recruit. So I need help with hiring or finding painters. They're going to help you do that. Hey, I need to get my trucks upfitted or find trucks. We have HPB Fleet or Z Fleet to help you find and maintain those trucks. We have, when we talk about Z Contacts, so the call center helping you manage that. We have Z Books, who's doing your bookkeeping and payroll. We have Z Logic. So when you talk about a data company, I don't want to be managing my business in an Excel and hope no formula ever gets screwed up. We've actually got a proprietary system that pulls from all of our software. So I've got live time dashboards of where are my salespeople at? Where am I at profitability? How's my marketing doing? All those things built in. And we do have plenty more. So like Z Benefits, and then one of the other big one that we just launched would be is actually a national customer acquisition vertical to help get national contracts and national HOAs. So we're constantly launching those as we see our Zs need them. But right now, that's all the pieces that we provide to our Zs.
Yeah, I think it's really smart to take all of the kind of categorize the revenue producing activities that a franchisee should be great at and is trained to be great at, and then take the non-revenue producing activities and have a shared services model where the franchisor steps in and provides that guidance. So, they can be more productive. So that makes total sense to me. So let's talk a little bit about who you're looking for. So, someone really likes the brand. What makes a great Groovy Hues franchise owner? Who do you guys look for?
Yeah, so I'd look and I'd say it's almost easier to say who's not the owner we're looking for. So on two ends of the spectrum, one, I like to use the term as an executive empire builder. So we're not looking for someone who's looking for a passion project. Also, if painting houses is your passion, we need to get some psychiatric help. I don't know anyone who's dreaming of that. But one is just somebody who's looking to build a bigger business. Again, if this is something you're looking to run like a local mom and pop, it's just not built for that. So who does really well is someone who's managed a P&L before, someone who has worked with people. So it doesn't mean that you can't be from IT or a job that you didn't interact. But hey, can I hold people accountable? Have I run people before is very helpful. And then the other one I say is a vision and an ability to follow a playbook. But I go back to the vision because I think that's true of any franchise, is follow the playbook. That's a really important piece. But the ability to have a vision and drive towards that helps makes the difference. And I say that in a way of, I like to think of us as the Chick-fil-A in the paint space, which is, hey, there's McDonald's, there's Burger King's, there's paint companies in every market. And it's because it's in demand. So if I can have a little bit better technology, a little bit better friendly customer service, and a good product, people are going to go more often. And, my wife's going to drag me into that line at lunch, even though I'm like, it's 50 minutes long. She goes, we're going to Chick-fil-A, deal with it. And that's the same is true here, is if we can consistently do that. So those owners who look and say, I've got a vision, I'm seeing it, I'm not afraid of competition. If anything, that helps me.
Yeah. And it sounds like you accept both semi-involved owners and full-time owner-operators. So you just make sure that depending on which model they choose, they need to be sufficiently capitalized. They need to hire for the positions that they're not going to be filling as an owner. Does that sound about right?
That is 100% correct. Is they have the right people in the right place. And again, it takes a little bit more capital because you have more people out of the gate.
Yeah. So you find there's a pretty balanced mix of owner operators and semi-involved in the system?
Yeah, I believe right now we're about 65% owner operators.
Okay.
Or I'd call them those executives. And then from that semi-involved is about 30 to 35%. Great.
So in terms of client acquisition and scheduling estimates and call center, is that all done for you as a Groovy Hues franchisee?
Yeah. So that's what Z Contact does for our call center, is manage that. What do your territories look like? So we actually provide a plethora. So I think it's 15 different routing numbers so that we can track what marketing efforts are working on each of our different marketing sources in a local market. Mm-hmm. So one, I can know where that's coming from. That call center is inbound to outbound 7 days a week. And then, hey, that's going directly to a salesperson's calendar. So they can see, hey, 3 days I'm heading to the Halpern house and he wants XYZ done. Hey, I'm ready to rock and roll. I can see that weeks in advance. So we do manage all that for the franchisee.
Can you send them? And we have a few projects that need to get done.
Where are you at, Mike? I think
I'm in Virginia. You mentioned before, I guess you were in Charlottesville. We live in Northern Virginia, so we're about an hour and a half from there. So it's, yeah, I'm originally from Philly, but I've been down in this area for 20 some years. So this is home. But yeah, we have a lot of, we have hot summers, cold winters. There's always a demand for paint because a lot of wear and tear here in the Northeast.
I do not miss your July humidity out in Virginia.
It's coming. It's coming. So let's talk about territories. So how large is a territory for a franchise owner that comes in and says, I'm in, let's go? What does that look like?
Yeah, so for a single territory, it's going to be 200,000 in population. We offer up to 5 contiguous territories that would operate as one business unit, so up to 1 million in population.
Okay, got it. And you might have touched on this before, but how many owners are currently launched and how many territories are kind of sold but not yet launched?
Yeah, so we, I think, just crossed the 20 owner mark, and that would be for us about 67, 68 territories. And of those, only about 9 of those territories are not yet launched.
Okay, so it looks like it's pretty consistent that the majority are investing in 3+ territories.
Correct. I think our national average is, and I'll say this across HorsePower, is about 3.2. Most are multi-territory
Yeah, so it gives them the opportunity to build a big business if they can kind of figure out how to scale it. So let's talk about item 7. How much does it cost to get in the business? I know as you add those other service lines, there's probably additional equipment, but when you're starting out, what's it cost to get in?
Yeah, so item 7 is going to be about 167 to 208,
Okay.
$208,000. That's for a single territory. Now, there is no additional equipment when it comes to more territories, because again, I can start with that single package and service a larger service area, grow into it, and then add more equipment as my business is more profitable. So that would be the starting point.
Okay. And then obviously there'd be more capital as, like you said, they have more territories and there's, cost associated with that, but that's commonplace. So in terms of performance, what kind of item 19, do you guys have an item 19? Is there anything you can share with us?
Yeah. So we do have our founding location. So our historical numbers for a business outside of Philadelphia who's been scaling his business about 3 years is right at $3.4 million.
Okay.
With a 19.7% gross margin. And then we do disclose, because we are only about a year and a half in, we do disclose those franchisees who are anywhere over 35 weeks in business. We don't have it in our item 19. We don't have anyone over a year quite yet.
Okay.
But you can actually give owners the chance to see in prospective candidates to be able to see, okay, what might my first year look like? And then how does that scale over a 3 to 4 year period?
Got it. So how long did that founding location operate before you guys kind of stepped in and acquired it?
Yeah, so he actually is a good character out there, Matt Rathgab. He owned his location for about 12 years. He started on his own.
Okay.
For 9 of those years, he ran how most painting companies operated. He was the lead painter. He was everything. And then about 3 years ago, he started actually using EOS independently, the traction system. And he said, why don't I run this like a business owner? And then we ran into each other, and he's like, man, if I had a Groovy Hues, I'd be a lot farther along than I was today, and I can't imagine where my revenue would be at. So he actually came on and said, hey, I want to join you guys and be a part of this as a founding location. That's
really cool. Speaking of EOS, I heard Gino Wickman on an older podcast this morning when I was jogging, so that was pretty cool. And that was Tommy Mello's podcast. So, well, awesome, man. This has been really, really helpful. You've shared a lot about Groovy Hues. Anything else you want to add to the mix before we wrap up today? Anything we missed?
No, I think we covered everything. I appreciate you having me on, Mike. We appreciate you've been a big proponent of the HorsePower brands and having us on here. And it's why I sit in Omaha, Nebraska today. Like, HorsePower's got to be doing something right to get us out of here, to us all out here.
Yeah, well, no, I mean, thanks for sharing your whole story with us, and it's exciting. And Groovy Hues is still relatively in its infancy, so it's interesting to see where this thing will go. I'm excited for you. So, anyone listening wants to connect with Josh to discuss Groovy Hues, contact me at franchiseqb.com or on Twitter at QBFranchiseQB. I'll get you guys connected. Thank you so much, Josh, for taking the time to get in the huddle and speak with us today about Groovy Hues.
Hey, have a great one. Thanks, Mike.
All right. Thank you for listening to the Franchise QB podcast, where you're at the helm of your future as a franchise owner. If you enjoyed the content, please rate the show and recommend it to anyone that might be interested in franchising. Make sure to visit franchiseqb.com to subscribe to my newsletter and for an actionable playbook to go from walk-on to legend in your new business. Follow us on Twitter at QBFranchiseQB and join us every week for a new episode. See you next time.
Visit franchiseqb.com to take the next step of your journey towards wealth, independence, and franchise ownership. And remember, when working for the man gets old, you must do something bold. Thank you for listening.